You're listening to Combat Radio with Ethan Dettenmeyer, right here on LA Talk Radio.
I wanted to get the two of you guys together. Joe Alves here, who has done everything from Jaws to crazy stuff with John Carpenter. He worked on Torn Curtain with Hitchcock, and on that shoot, this applies to you, Bob. He takes Paul Newman out, race car driving, and almost gets him killed in like a Ferrari wreck. You were an automobile designer.
Yeah,
right?
But I was also a race car official at the sports car races.
That's why I wanted to get you two guys to see. Alf just suddenly sat up.
Well, not only he worked with Jaws, so he knows Bruce the shark, and he knows Bob Maddy, who was the guy building that thing. And I used to work with Bob Maddy at the Disney studio.
Yeah, wasn't he great?
Yeah, Bob,
my head's going to explode. Hold on.
Okay,
hold on.
No, Bob Maddy was fearless because the big difference between, say, a movie machine and a theme park machine. Theme park machine's got to run 16 hours a day, about 220 days a year. Bob Maddy's machine, you could pour oil on it with an oil can every 20 minutes, and as long as you got the shot, then the machine collapsed. That's all it took. Yeah. That's what he did.
Well, Bob was fantastic because when the effects people at Universal said they couldn't build a shark, it would take a couple of years and blah, blah, blah. And Marshall Green was the head of production, said, all right, take it out of the studio and find somebody. And I interviewed a lot of people, and I went to Disney. And they said they could do it, but they wouldn't want to do it in the real ocean, And then somebody mentioned Bob Maddy. And Bob would say he could do anything. And the poor guy, though, he didn't have a year and a half. When the book came out, they wanted to make the movie right away, so he had less than 6 months. But a non-stop guy.
Yeah, the guy was absolutely fascinating. Of course, it was interesting. I was working with Steven Spielberg for 5 months on Jurassic Park, and we got to talking about Bruce.
Yeah.
And Spielberg said, Maddy's machine worked, but he says it worked different every day. And he says every night I rewrote the script to see if it would follow what Bruce could actually do.
Well, I might have a different story on that. I did 300 storyboards sitting down with Steven, and we had three sharks, left to right, right to left, and so I would go to Bob, and I was right from the beginning because I did the first model, and then we did one that was 6 times bigger, and I got Roy Arbogast, who is an incredible effects guy.
Yeah.
And in any case, I would be communicating because they had such little time. I would have to go to Bob. I said, "What's working? What can you get working today?" Because he didn't have the year and a half. He literally had no time to test it. So it would be a question of, I think we could get the left to right shark, and then I'd go to Steven, and then we'd go through. Let's see what storyboards have the left to right. And he took a lot of bashing, and at times Steven did say some derogatory things about that, and I think it was very unfair because there was a time element, and no one had ever made a movie in the real ocean.
Yeah, that was really a first. Great big practicals for movies. That's a very risky thing. Luckily, all the stuff I did was just sort of downstream a little bit from that, where you had time to engineer it, and it had to run for a very, very long time in the park. And I always loved the idea of doing practicals for the movie industry. And Bruce, the shark, was the first big one that got everybody's attention.
Yeah, and when you're out in the real ocean, the ocean is very unpredictable. You can go out there at 7 for 8 call, whatever, and it's like glass. And by the time you get the effects boat out there and the camera boat out there and then the picture boat out there, and then it's 11. And then maybe it starts getting a little bit choppy.
I don't even have to be here for this. This is awesome. I can just step out and go get some coffee. You guys talk amongst yourself. Go ahead. No. Go ahead. You're talking about the...
Anyway, that is so unpredictable. By 3 or 4 o'clock, you could barely get back to shore. I mean, the ocean was just... No one had done it. And Steve and I, I started on the picture before Stephen. I did concept sketches based on the galley sheets of the book. And then Stephen came on, and we made this determination, full-size shark, big shark, 25, in the real ocean, right? Because, like Old Man in the Sea was such a beautiful movie, but the ocean sequences were done in a tank, and they weren't that convincing. So, here's two sort of younger guys that make this incredible decision. And then we get a guy like Bob Matty that says, yeah, I could do anything, and we charge out. And, when people tell me, oh, it's too bad the shark didn't work. And I said, if it didn't work, why you guys were so scared? Well, why did it? It did.
Yeah, no, I remember him as a very fearless guy because you remember, he was working for Walt Disney, and Walt always wanted something that was crazy, goofy, nobody had ever done it.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah, he'd walk out to Matty's shop and describe something, and Matty said, "Well, I'll get started on it right away." I know one time when I first met him, we were adding some animations to the Jungle Cruise at Disneyland, and we wanted to have a bunch of natives that were jumping up and down and running around in a circle. The machine is still there. Matty got one of the natives just to barely work, but I remember he had a guy was squirting oil on it the whole time because there was no bearings in it or anything, and Walt looked at it, and my boss, Roger Brogy Sr., was there, and Walt says, "Yeah, I like that. Okay, Matty, you got it barely running. Okay, Gurr, you engineer it." And that's the way we were. Matty'd get the idea. Like, he'd do the concept, he'd have the proof of concept, the motion's going to work, and then it says, "Okay, Gurr, you make a production machine out of it."
Well, but the thing about Bob, though, is he was like a junkyard guy. He'd go and find this piece and that piece and would say, "Go buy the best RAM you can." No, he'd find this stuff, I mean, it was like just, I don't know, the economy was so important to him.
No, we had a shop in Burbank. I forget the name of it, but it was like a great big war surplus place. Yeah. It was a gold mine, and the guys would let us go in there and run around through all these bins of junk, and we'd find some aerospace part that was extremely expensive, and we could buy it for $1.
Yes, that was Rob.
Yeah, that's the way we did it.
Yeah. It's incredible. I have a really quick story. My first job was at Walt Disney. It was a summer job that lasted 2 years, and it just so happened a friend of mine. I said, "Now, gee, I need to get a summer job." I was going to art school, and he said, "Oh, my father-in-law works at Disney." Well, it happened to be Andy Eggman who did the hiring for the animators, for the artists. And as it was, I was too late for the training system, so they put me in special effects. And through circumstances and in 2 months, I was working for Josh Metter, who was one of the greatest effects animators there. And so anyway, I was there for 2 years, but it was interesting at this point, it was Walt was still there. And I had a situation where I'm working, and this guy reaches over and says, "No, this is supposed to look like this." And it was, "Oh, okay, Walt." But he was hands-on guy, wasn't he?
No, Walt was always walking around the back lot, walking around through the buildings. See, he didn't give orders through other people.
He was there.
No, he was always wandering around. You never knew where he was going to show up. But the machine shop, he loved to poke around Matty's place, and then we had the machine shop also right across the alley from it. And Walt would wander through, and he would poke and fuss with stuff because he built some of his own railroad stock.
Yeah, he was big into the railroads.
Yeah, he could build stuff by his own hands, so he knew what he was.
But I was shocked. I mean, I look over my shoulder and it's Walt Disney correcting one of my drawings,
Well, that's the standard way he worked.
You're listening to Combat Radio with Ethan Dettenmeyer, right here on LA Talk Radio.